Somewhere in the world right now, a family is feeding rice to an empty chair because they believe their ancestor is still sitting there. In another country, graves are reopened every year, not for maintenance, but so the dead can breathe. And yes, there are places where people sleep with coins under their tongue, convinced it's the only currency the afterlife accepts. These rituals aren't fiction, they're real, practiced, and deeply believed. Today, we're entering the eerie, emotional, and unbelievable world of 50 absurd death, ghost, and afterlife traditions humanity still follows. In Madagascar, the Malagasy practice Famadihana, also known as the turning of the bones. Every few years, families reopen the tomb, remove the wrapped ancestors, and celebrate with music and dancing while carrying the remains like honored guests. They speak to them, update them on family events, and rewrap the bones with fresh silk. The belief is that the dead are never gone, they are simply waiting. To outsiders, it feels surreal. To them, it's love refusing silence. In Mexico, the tradition of placing food, tequila, cigarettes, and sugar skulls on Dia de los Muertos altars isn't decoration. It's nourishment for visiting spirits. Some families even leave water to refresh tired souls after their long journey back. The barrier between the living and dead is treated like a temporary doorway. Tears and laughter coexist. For Mexicans, honoring the dead isn't grief. It's reunion disguised as celebration. In South Korea, certain families compress ashes of the deceased into colorful glass beads displayed in jars, necklaces, or bowls. These beads aren't jewelry, they are presents. Some believe the spirit rests inside the bead and watches over the family. Rather than graves, homes become silent memorials. To outsiders, it seems strange, but to them beauty softens sorrow and keeps memory physical, warm, and visible. In Ghana, funerals are enormous celebrations rather than quiet farewells. Some families commission fantasy coffins shaped like fish, airplanes, shoes, or cars, symbols of the person's passion or status. The belief is that death shouldn't erase identity. It should exaggerate it. Dancing, drumming, and laughter accompany burial because the dead aren't feared. They are congratulated for reaching the next stage of existence. In Tibet, sky burials treat the body as an offering rather than a possession. The deceased is placed on a sacred mountain where vultures consume the remains. To Tibetan Buddhists, the body is empty after death. Only consciousness continues. Feeding nature is considered compassion, not horror. The ritual teaches something profound. Nothing truly belongs to us, not even our own bones. In Japan, some families collect the bones of cremated relatives using chopsticks and pass them piece by piece to an urn. The specific order matters, feet first, skull last, to avoid symbolically reversing the journey of life. The ritual requires silence, precision, and presence. To the Japanese, this isn't morbid, it's respect crafted through method. In Indonesia's Toraja region, families keep deceased relatives inside the home for months or years before burial, treating them as sick rather than dead. They receive food, clothing, cigarettes, and conversation. The belief is that death is transition, not disappearance. Only when the family is emotionally ready and financially prepared for the elaborate funeral does the burial occur. Time bends around grief. In Romania, some villages perform grave feeding, where families bring bread, wine, and cooked meals to cemeteries, believing spirits grow hungry just like the living. Children run between graves. Priests chant blessings and lanterns guide invisible guests. Food left untouched isn't wasted. It's said the dead have consumed the essence. The ritual blurs the boundary between memory and presence. In Philippines, Sagada, coffins are nailed high onto cliff faces because villagers believe souls should be closer to the sky. Traditional burials were seen as trapping spirits. The higher the coffin, the more respected the person. Some families climb cliffs by rope to maintain or repaint ancestral boxes. The dead remain outdoors, exposed to wind, rain, and sky, symbolizing freedom instead of confinement. In India's Varanasi, many Hindus travel to die near the Ganges River, believing cremation there grants moksha, freedom from rebirth. Some ashrams house the elderly who wait peacefully for death, treating it as spiritual graduation rather than tragedy. The river becomes both witness and escort, carrying ashes toward eternal liberation. For them, death isn't feared, it's destiny fulfilled. In China's Ghost Festival, families burn elaborate paper replicas of money, clothing, houses, and even smartphones, believing these items materialize in the afterlife for ancestors' use. The fire becomes a spiritual delivery system. Some burn miniature servants or cars, ensuring comfort beyond death. Eating food before spirits finish is forbidden, or ghosts may become angry. The festival isn't fear, it's negotiation. The living bargain with the unseen, hoping respect keeps spirits peaceful rather than hungry and restless. In Nigeria's Yoruba culture, talking drums are played during funerals to communicate with the spirit world. It's believed spirits understand rhythm more clearly than spoken language. Some drummers improvise messages asking ancestors to guide the newly dead. The music shifts from mournful to ecstatic because death is transformation, not ending. The beat isn't entertainment, it's translation. Emotion converted into sound so spirits can receive it. In Thailand, monks chant over bodies wrapped tightly in white cloth before burial or cremation. Families sometimes slip coins or amulets into the wrappings to protect the spirit during its journey. Some also place a knife beside the body, not for violence, but to cut ties between soul and earthly attachment. The ritual reflects Southeast Asian belief. The afterlife requires preparation, intention, and protection against both memory and fear. In Madagascar's Antandroy tribe, when someone dies, mourners avoid saying the person's name for a long period because speaking it could keep the spirit from transitioning. Instead, nicknames or poetic metaphors are used. Grief becomes coded language. Memory is preserved through silence rather than repetition. The practice reflects a haunting idea. Sometimes honoring someone means letting their spirit forget the world before entering the next. In Peru's Andean highlands, families bury coca leaves with the dead to ensure the spirit has energy for the long climb into the afterlife. Some graves include miniature ladders and bridges, representing obstacles the soul must cross. The mountains themselves are treated as ancestors, watching over journeys both living and dead. The ritual believes death isn't departure, it's another ascent. In Ireland's ancient Celtic customs, funeral wakes included mirrors being covered and clocks stopped immediately after death. Mirrors were believed to trap souls, and clocks stopping symbolized the end of earthly time. Food, whiskey, and storytelling filled the night, celebrating the life rather than the loss. To the Celts, laughter and grief belonged together. Both emotions guide the spirit safely onward. In Tibet's Bon tradition, monks create intricate sand mandalas next to the dying or newly dead, believing the patterns act as cosmic maps for the soul. When the ritual ends, the mandala is destroyed, symbolizing impermanence. The message is deeply philosophical. Nothing remains, not breath, not body, not form. Only awareness continues its journey. In Russia's rural villages, some families leave a bowl of fresh water by the door for 40 days after someone dies. The belief is that the spirit remains nearby until its final departure, cleansing itself daily. Doors are opened gently and loud noises are discouraged. The 40-day mark represents the moment the soul fully detaches from earthly longing. Until then, the home becomes both sanctuary and threshold. In Kenya's Luo community, crying loudly at burial isn't just grief, it's duty. Suppressed emotion is said to insult the dead, preventing the spirit from resting. Professional mourners sometimes joined families, amplifying sorrow into ceremonial expression. Grief becomes performance, not deception, but release. The louder the mourning, the smoother the afterlife passage. In Japan's Obon festival, lanterns are lit and placed in rivers to guide ancestral spirits back to the spirit realm. Families believe ghosts visit during the festival, eating offerings and spending time among loved ones. When the final lantern floats away, it represents goodbye, not forever, but until next year. Water becomes the road between here and elsewhere. In Tonga, when someone dies, mourners wear black clothing made from scratchy woven mats called to'ovala. The discomfort is intentional. Suffering honors the dead. Some even shave their heads as a public symbol of mourning. Mourning may last months, during which laughter, celebrations, and bright clothes are discouraged. The belief is simple. If someone you love has crossed into the unknown, life shouldn't return to normal too quickly. Grief itself becomes a ritual that speaks louder than words. In Vietnam, families perform a ritual where they burn paper houses, clothes, jewelry, and even printed fake passports for the deceased during the Vu Lan festival. They believe the dead still require comfort, identity, and possession in the afterlife. The smoke carries these offerings into the unseen realm. It's emotional technology. Fire becoming delivery. The ritual acknowledges something universal. Humans fear that love might end at death, so they continue giving, hoping the bond remains alive beyond breath. In Tanzania's Hadzabe community, when someone dies, the body is placed under a shallow covering of branches rather than buried deeply. The belief is that the earth should take the body naturally without manipulation. No grave markers, no monuments, just a quiet surrender. Mourning is brief and private because remembering too intensely is believed to delay the spirit's freedom. The ritual suggests a powerful idea. Once someone goes to the next realm, the living shouldn't keep pulling them back with memory. In Nepal, during Kogbeni's Ghost Festival, families tie knots into threads while chanting names of the deceased. The threads represent attachments and unresolved energy. At the end, monks burn the knotted thread, releasing the spirits and clearing emotional debts. Some cry, some laugh, some simply watch the smoke dissolve. The ritual reflects an ancient belief. The dead cannot fully leave until the living let go, not with forgetting, but with acknowledgement. In Sri Lanka, certain Buddhist families write messages to deceased relatives on palm leaves and then place them into sacred rivers, believing water is the only medium capable of carrying emotion between worlds. The ritual isn't dramatic, it's quiet, reflective, and deeply personal. The river becomes messenger, translator, and witness. Instead of praying for the dead, some speak to them, trusting the current to deliver difficult words, regret, apology, longing, or gratitude. In Tibet's Himalayan villages, people sometimes leave a bowl of salt outside the home after a death. Salt represents purification and separation of realms. If the salt remains untouched overnight, monks say the spirit has already found its next destination. If disturbed by wind, animal, or unexplained movement, it's believed the spirit still lingers and needs further guidance. The ritual turns something ordinary into a spiritual indicator, silent proof of unseen presence. In Haiti's Vodou tradition, families sometimes call upon Eloi spirits to guide the departed through crossroads between life and afterlife. Vodou drums echo through the night, rhythms believed to open invisible gates. Offerings of cornmeal, rum, and candles help the dead navigate. Unlike Western fear of ghosts, Haitian tradition sees spirits as active participants, protectors, messengers, or sometimes restless figures needing respect. Death isn't an end, it's a shift in responsibility between worlds. In South Africa's Zulu culture, immediately after someone dies, mirrors in the home are covered because it's believed the spirit may become trapped inside reflections. Windows are sometimes left slightly open so the soul can exit peacefully. The body is washed gently while prayers are whispered. The ritual isn't fear, it's guidance, ensuring the spirit leaves without confusion or attachment. To the Zulu, the transition between realms requires clarity, respect, and tenderness. In China's rural regions, some families place paper shoes beside the deceased, believing souls walk long distances in the afterlife. Barefoot spirits are thought to suffer. The shoes symbolize compassion, care extending beyond mortality. The ritual implies life continues with needs and journeys, not stillness. Even after death, responsibility doesn't vanish. Love simply evolves into a different type of caretaking. In Scotland's Highlands, ancient funerary traditions included the soul watch, where someone stayed awake beside the body overnight to ensure the spirit wasn't disturbed by wandering entities or malicious energies. Candles burned to guide the soul outward, while windows remained slightly open to provide a pathway. The silence wasn't eerie, it was reverent, acknowledging something fragile. The soul's crossing isn't instant, it's vulnerable. In China's Qinghai region, Tibetan herders place bowls of butter tea beside graves during the first week after burial. They believe the soul remains thirsty, adjusting to separation from the human body. If animals drink it, the family takes it as a sign the spirit is watched over by nature. If the tea evaporates untouched, it's said the spirit has already moved on. The ritual blends comfort with mystery, kindness extended to someone who can no longer answer. In Japan's rural Shinto communities, families sometimes place wooden dolls beside graves representing things the deceased never achieved, like travel, marriage, or parenthood. The belief is that the afterlife contains opportunities the physical world denied. Dolls become symbolic second chances. Rather than mourning what was lost, families gift possibility. The ritual transforms regret into hope and speaks to a quiet truth. Even after death, humans imagine futures for those they love. In Tibet's ancient Bon religion, masked dancers perform fierce rituals during funerals to scare away negative energies and wandering spirits. Some masks represent wrathful guardians, others ancient gods of transformation. The dance isn't entertainment, it's spiritual combat. Movement becomes shield, rhythm becomes weapon, and costume becomes language. The ritual teaches that death is not passive, it's a journey requiring protection. In Hawaii, some families practice ho'oponopono after a death, a ceremony where relatives gather to confess unresolved conflicts and forgive one another. They believe emotional imbalance affects the departed soul's transition. Tears, apologies, and storytelling become medicine. The ritual isn't for the dead, it's for the living, releasing guilt so love becomes the last memory attached to the one who left. In Madagascar's Sakalava communities, certain graves are guarded by wooden sculptures called alo-alo. These carved pillars depict animals, spirits, and symbols representing the deceased's personality or destiny. They stand not as decoration, but as spiritual markers, gateways between realms. The belief is that ancestors watch through these carvings, observing the living quietly, waiting for offerings, remembrance, or acknowledgement. In Nigeria's Igbo culture, the dead are believed to travel through a series of spiritual checkpoints before reaching the ancestral realm. During this time, families leave palm wine, kola nuts, and yam offerings near the home and grave. These offerings serve as provisions, bribery, or respect, depending on the path. The ritual reflects a worldview where the afterlife isn't instant. It's a journey negotiated through gesture, memory, and devotion. In India's Bengal region, some families place a clay lamp near the feet of the deceased for several nights, believing light guides the soul through darkness and confusion. Darkness isn't feared. It's respected as the unknown between worlds. The lamp flickers like a heartbeat, symbolizing transition rather than extinction. When the flame finally dies, families say softly, "Now the path is clear." In Philippines' Ifugao tribes, funerals sometimes include posing the deceased seated upright on a wooden chair, dressed in woven garments and surrounded by betel nut offerings. Visitors speak to the body as if it can still respond, sharing stories, jokes, or apologies. The belief is that honoring presence helps the spirit detach gently. Death becomes a conversation, not silence. In Turkey's Alevi tradition, mourners do not cry loudly during burial because they believe tears can drown the soul or weigh it down emotionally. Grief must be controlled, soft, and inward. Instead of wailing, they express pain through whispered prayers and quiet reflection. The ritual shows how even sorrow can be disciplined when people fear interfering with the soul's ascent. In Mongolia, some nomadic families leave small piles of stones, called ovu, in memory of the dead. Each stone represents a thought, a memory, or a prayer. Travelers add stones when passing, ensuring the dead are never forgotten. Over generations, these piles grow into sacred mounds, shaped not by architecture but by shared remembrance. The tradition proves memory can be built by many hands. In Japan's rural coastal towns, families place coins in the mouth of the deceased, believing the soul must pay shinigami, the death ferryman, before crossing the river to the next world. Without payment, the spirit may wander eternally, restless and forgotten. The coin isn't currency, it's passage, permission, and protection. Even today, some secretly follow this ritual, whispering apologies and hopes while placing the final coin, acknowledging that the journey beyond life may have more rules than the one we're leaving. In Chile's Mapuche culture, when someone dies, the family places small wooden guardians called chamamul outside the grave to protect the spirit. These carved figures stand like silent sentinels, representing a bridge between ancestors and the living. Some believe the spirit communicates through them in dreams or unusual weather. The statues are never feared. They are reminders that the dead are not gone, only changed. Memory becomes wood and wood becomes doorway. In India's Rajasthan region, widows traditionally observed a practice called purda mourning, where they avoided mirrors, jewelry, and bright colors for months or even years after a husband's death. Beauty was considered disrespectful to grief. The absence of adornment was not punishment. It was symbolism. Love continued even when the person was gone. Though fading today, the ritual reflects an ancient belief that appearance carries emotional truth. In Ethiopia's Omo Valley, The Karo people decorate graves with symbolic wooden carvings shaped like birds, warriors, or tools, depending on how the person lived. Some carvings even display scars or feathers representing bravery. These grave markers aren't gravestones, they're stories. Instead of writing names, they write meaning. The dead are remembered through symbols rather than words, allowing identity to remain alive visually long after bones have disappeared. In Russia's Orthodox tradition, for 40 days after death, families avoid rearranging furniture, believing the spirit still walks through familiar paths. Even chairs remain positioned exactly where the deceased once sat. Food is placed near their favorite spots, and candles burn in quiet corners. The ritual acknowledges something deeply human. Before letting go, the living must first let the spirit feel at home one last time. In China's rural Hunan province, families sometimes scatter rice around the body before burial so wandering spirits can see the path and avoid interfering with the newly departed. The rice becomes both offering and signal, spiritual breadcrumbs guiding movement. If insects consume the rice quickly, it's believed the soul will transition peacefully. If untouched, families perform additional rituals, fearing lingering attachment or unfinished business. In Papua New Guinea's Four People, mourners once performed ritual cannibalism, believing consuming the dead allowed their spirit to remain within the community rather than disappearing. The act wasn't horror, it was devotion. Eating flesh symbolized memory absorption. Although no longer practiced, the belief reflected a worldview where physical death didn't sever bonds, but transformed them into something literal and eternal. In Poland, during All Souls' Day, families light graveyard candles that represent warmth for the wandering dead. The glow turns cemeteries into oceans of flickering lights. Some believe spirits wander on this night, searching for comfort or unfinished connections. Candles become tiny suns, guiding, warming, and welcoming. Grief transforms into illumination. In Thailand's Isan region, monks bless the mouth of the deceased with sacred water and gently tie red string around the wrist as spiritual protection. The string symbolizes connection between body and soul, life and afterlife, memory and release. Cutting the string later marks the moment the family finally lets go. Timing matters. Too soon causes regret, too late traps grief. In Japan's Fukushima region, some families practice tsunagari bonds, writing letters to their deceased relatives and leaving them beside shrines or graves. Messages range from apologies to updates about daily life. These letters aren't meant to be read, they're meant to be delivered across silence. The belief is emotional. Love doesn't end when breathing stops, it simply changes language.